everybody. Welcome to the newest episode of On That Note with Parker Whirling. Today's guest is an Orange County native. He's a singer-songwriter, producer, multi-instrumentalist, and he even builds his own guitars and effect pedals. He put out an album called Brauheist 2006 earlier this August, and I'm incredibly excited to have him on the podcast today. Please welcome Delta Dagger. Let's go ahead and get started here. John from Delta Dagger, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate you coming on. I heard your album, Brauheist 2006, and I was like, what is going on here? There's so much happening, but it's so catchy, and I really enjoyed it. My first question really is, where did the name come from? Brauheist 2006.
Yeah, so that is a reference to the movie Beer Fest. There's a scene in that movie where Will Forte's character, they're spying on the American drinking team, and they have this beer recipe. The Germans are spying on them. The Germans want to steal this beer recipe, and they're coming up with a plan, and Will Forte's character starts listing these different names that they could call the operation, and one of them is Brauheist 2006. And when I first heard that, I was like, that needs to be a song or an album or something. I need to use that. So that's where it comes from.
That's funny. That stuck with you for so long, and you're like, you know what? This is the one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, and there are a couple things like that. Like, I already know the next record is going to be called Macho Dumbass, actually because of something that was said on a podcast that I was on like a year ago or maybe more. So, yeah.
Macho Dumbass, man. You got some good names.
Thank you.
And where did the artwork come from for Brauheist? Because I think it hits the nail on the head. There's so much going on in the album, and then you listen to it and you're like, oh, it's almost like a collage.
Yeah, it was perfect. So I've been working with this artist, a friend of mine. I actually know him from high school. His name's Dennis Levinsky. He's here in Orange County, a super talented guy. And I started working with him for my first record. I had this kind of mock-up of a band logo that I had done in just Paint, Microsoft Paint, just super crappy little mock-up. And at the time, he was doing really cool, sort of two-dimensional, geometric, big block color shape, like very cool looking stuff. And it was kind of similar to the logo I had mocked up. And so I sent it to him and said, hey, would you do a logo for me? Would you do album art? And a logo for me, and he did it, and I loved it, and so he crushed it for the first album / logo, and I knew for this upcoming album I wanted to do something a little more collagey because, like you said, the album is a little bit eclectic. I wanted to have kind of all these disparate pieces coming together into one cohesive thing. And I had since gotten into a little bit of like very, very amateur photography, just with like a little Fuji Instax instant camera. And funny enough, looking at Dennis's like Instagram and stuff, he was starting to do collage stuff at the same time. So just totally by chance. And so I hit him up and said, dude, what, because his collage stuff, a lot of people are doing collage stuff right now, which is cool, but a lot of it doesn't quite connect with me, if I'm totally honest with you. But his stuff was really cool and really trippy, and he kind of included some of that little bit of geometric design to it too. Like, it really resonated with me, and I asked him, like, what's your process, man? Like, this is so cool. And he was like, I go on Wikipedia and I just hit random article a bunch of times, and just anything that strikes me as cool, I just save the picture because it's all public domain, and I just kind of take whatever I liked and put it together and force it into an image. And I was like, well, bro, can I send you like 50 of these Instax like scans? Like, will you do an album cover for me? And he did. And I think you're totally right. It's perfect for the record.
That's awesome. You took all the photos that are collaged on the album?
Right, exactly. Yeah, those are all my little Instax photos. But then, Dennis is the one that put it together and arranged it, and yeah, he did an amazing job.
That's so cool, adding a personal touch to it. Every time you look at that, or every time someone looks at it, it's just an extra little bit of John.
Yeah.
And when you did that with him, did you give him any instruction other than collage these? Like, did you have sort of structure in mind, or was it pretty much just a free for all?
I gave him kind of like a vibe. I was just kind of like what I'm envisioning. I was like kind of what I'm envisioning is almost like the Sgt. Pepper's album cover, where it's all these, cutouts of celebrities and stuff with the band, but it's very colorful and dreamy and weird and trippy. And I said, something kind of like that. Obviously do it in your style. But I kind of want to have like the image of like a band and an audience playing like a show like down at the beach or something. And I think he did it perfectly, where it like, if you really look carefully at it, you can see like the bits of that coming through, but it's not so obvious. It's not as in your face as like the Sgt. Pepper album cover. It's still very, very abstract. I think it came out perfect.
I'm gonna have to go look at it again because I didn't even notice the beach side of things. I just saw that it was like very colorful and there was a lot going on, and that's cool that if I go back now, I'm going to really see the beach scene you're talking about.
Right.
So,
Right.
moving on to the music side of things, I have to ask how you start writing these songs, especially one like Die Up. Like it starts one way and then it hits another progression, and then it changes like four more times before it comes back to the like full circle at the end. How did that start?
So that song started, what was the earliest piece of that song that I had? I think the main riff, the one that it starts with and ends with, I think that was the first thing I had. Basically, like most musicians do, I have my voice memos on my phone, and I'm constantly just recording crappy little things on there, and I believe that one in particular, I woke up in the middle of the night and just kind of had it in my head. Sometimes that happens. You like hear a song in a dream
Mm-hmm.
and you like wake up and you're like, nah, like whatever, who cares? Go back to sleep. But like, it's like so key to just force yourself to like, sleep with your guitar next to your bed and like just snag it, 2 a.m., whatever, snag it, record the crappy little thing. Even if you like think it sucks at the time or think it's, this is too small, this is nothing, it'll turn into something eventually. So I that was a little late night riff that I just recorded one night, and it was a different tempo, different kind of rhythm to it, different key, everything, but it was there. The bones of it were there. And then the second part, the little kind of reggae riff, sort of the chorus, if you will, that was recorded when that was written when I picked up a little cheap Casio, like electric piano thing, like just one of the really crappy small ones, and I don't really play piano, but I wanted to learn some stuff to put some like kind of little synth lines and little things on my first record. So that little riff is basically just going down in C major on all the white keys, doing I think it's just like a little thirds harmony or something like that, like super simple. But it's kind of catchy and kind of fun. And I put a little like marimba thing on the keyboard, and I was like, oh, this is so fun. It's almost like a kind of a little kid like toy piano sound, but it's kind of beachy and fun. So then I had that, and what I'll do from time to time is I'll go through my voice memos and be like, okay, well, I'm doing an album, I need an opener. I'm gonna just go and listen to these and just kind of bash them together as much as I can to make a song. And so like Die Up to me is kind of that is like the quintessential, like that song is the most me song, I think, on that whole record. Like that's kind of if
And you're not even singing on it.
no. Well, I'm a guitar player first and foremost. Like that is my that is my forte. But like stuff like that, the multi-part kind of fun, sort of through composed songs, that's what gets me going. I really enjoy that kind of stuff. So that one was kind of bashed together from multiple parts, and you take them and change the rhythm and change what key they're in and make them fit. And then I included the little Lydian kind of trippy breakdown part. A buddy of mine, Ben Sealhammer, He was in the UCSB Middle East Ensemble, so I had him play an oud solo over that part.
Whoa.
Because we had jammed one time just kind of out of the blue, and he was playing a sitar, and he had me sit in with him on acoustic guitar for this little performance, and like that stuck with me. I was like, okay, I need to get Ben on something. And I wanted him to do a sitar solo, but I showed him the song and he was like, dude, no. You don't want sitar on this. You want oud on this. I was like,
I don't
I
even
didn't,
think I know what oud is.
I didn't either. It looks like a lute. It's kind of like this big bodied acoustic instrument. It looks like a lute. I think it has 8 strings. It's fretless. So it's this cool, it kind of stretches into the bass, frequency range, but also overlaps with acoustic guitar somewhat. And he did like the coolest oud solo ever on there. So super
Amazing.
fun.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to go listen to some oud music after this.
Oh yeah, there's a guy, if you look up like NPR Tiny Desk Oud, there's like this dude they had on who did a little 3-song set, and it's like unbelievable. It's like so good.
I love those NPR Tiny Desk concerts, so definitely will check that out.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And Die Up is definitely the quintessential track, I think. Like, it makes sense that it's the first one. It's getting you into like what you're going to be experiencing throughout the whole album, and it's an amalgamation of things. My favorite 2 songs, though, I think are probably I'm So in Love, the final track, and was it Put On? Is that the third
Put
song?
on.
Put
Yeah.
On. Yeah, those 2 to me are, it's funny because it's so those 2 are so different than the first song, but
Yeah.
they make, I don't know, like it takes you on a journey, and I love that you end it with like a country banger.
Yeah. Yeah, it you hit the nail on the head there. I'm something like with these through composed songs, for instance, I love taking people on a journey. Like one of the goals with that track is you hear the opening riff, then you hear all this other stuff, and then you come back to the opening riff. You're supposed to hear it differently almost the second time now that you've heard all this other stuff. So it's fun to have a record where you can, exactly like you said, open with a song like that almost encapsulates the whole record, and leaves people kind of like, wow, I sort of know what to expect, but also don't know what to expect. It's like only by the end of the album do you realize that the first song was like, here's what the whole album's going to be. And then, ending it with the country one. I like to do something like structurally on my albums where the end, like the last song is the second to last song. And then the true like final song on the album is a little bit of a, like it's just a fun one,
Mm-hmm.
like it's not necessarily like a joke song by any means, but it is supposed to be a little bit of just like, it's just fun,
Right.
Whereas thematically, maybe the second to last song is like the last song. But yeah, that one, I wrote that one way back during college when I was in my old band, which was kind of more of a rock band. And I don't know, I had a country song that I wrote. It just kind of, the lyrics came to me and the music came to me. It's a very simple song, but I don't know. It came to me very simply and easily, and I knew I had to write it, and it didn't really fit with my old band, and it doesn't necessarily fit with this either, but this is my solo project. I get to do whatever I want with it. So I put it on there as the very final song. I've played it live a bunch of times. We'll usually play it live and then follow it up with a rendition of the King of the Hill theme. And it's just so much fun. Like, I don't know. I draw a lot from country guitar playing in my guitar playing too. Guys like Roy Buchanan and stuff. And I mean, like Danny Gatton, really genre bending with him, but I don't know. I love country music. I think country music is highly underrated and has been done dirty by the music industry these days. Not to piss off any modern country fans, but I don't think modern country is country. But old country is truly a really cool and really uniquely American style of music. I think it's, I'm disappointed that Ken Burns never did a follow up to the jazz documentary and never did like a country. Like there's a country, folk, blues, bluegrass kind of connection that also includes jazz. Like they're all kind of in there in the same time period. And I think people forget that connection. So it's, I don't know. I just had a lot of fun with it.
That's so cool. My roommate got me into outlaw country. I didn't like any country pretty much my entire life. And a few weeks ago, or maybe about 2 months ago, actually, my roommate showed me some Waylon and Willie.
Oh,
And I
nice.
never really listened to them before. When I heard the Wurlitzer Prize, that was like the one that did it for me. I loved that song. And since then, he's shown me more and more artists and more songs, and now I'm into the outlaw country thing, and I'm glad that I got into it before I heard I'm So in Love, because I'm sure I would have liked it before, but now I have a different appreciation for it.
Right. It makes a little more sense. I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, that one is I definitely had the most fun recording that one. I definitely physically hurt myself the worst recording that one. I did use some studio trickery to hide it, but if you listen to the high harmony at the end of the song, I'm like barely keeping up. I was really struggling with that one. But it was so much fun to do that 3-part high, low, and main vocal harmony. I'd never done that before, and I just did it on the fly because that's country and that's what it sounds like, and I just did it, and I was not prepared to do that physically, but I did it anyways, and it was a lot of fun. And that's kind of part of it. You go listen to the old Hank Williams Sr., and stuff like that, and he doesn't have a perfect voice. Or the classic, the one that we can't not mention, is Roscoe Holcomb, Man of Constant Sorrow. Oh man, it's have you listened to that recording?
No, I haven't. I was hoping you weren't going to ask after you said it was a
Oh,
classic.
That's all right. I don't judge. I only learned about it somewhat recently myself. So that's one that you got to go listen. It's Roscoe Holcomb. It's a cappella, and it's one of the most stirring musical performances of any kind that I've ever heard. And he is far from perfect, but I think it perfectly encapsulates what country music is, and bluegrass, and kind of that Americana vibe. Very cool stuff.
Well, I'll have to check it out. Roscoe Holcomb.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I do have to ask you about the fact that you build your own guitars and your effects. I thought that was so cool. I know nothing about any of that. So, what is your process when you're starting to make a pedal? And can you put it in terms that I will understand?
Yeah, so pedals that I've built, I've only done a little bit of pedals. Me and my old drummer, who was a physics major, he was taking an analog electronics class. We built a ring modulator pedal, which is the one we built was a very simple circuit. Basically, the process was I had heard this effect used on several recordings and was enthralled by it and wanted to put it on guitar. I'd heard it used on some synthesizers and stuff. I believe it was it like Soft Machine? Soft Machine had an album where Alan Holdsworth played guitar on it. It's called Bundles. If you're a jazz fusion guy, you'll love it. But their keyboard player, which people murder me for not knowing his name, but he does some cool solos on there on his synth using a ring modulator effect. Jeff Beck uses it too, but I had heard it on several songs. I was enthralled by this effect, and when I went and looked at the existing market of these pedals, they were all extremely expensive. And when I looked at the circuit online, it was an extremely simple circuit. So I showed it to my old drummer, Will. He was taking an analog electronics class, and I said, "Hey, look at this circuit. Like, do you think we could build this together?" And he was like, "Oh, dude, I can literally steal all those little parts from the lab. Like, we have tons of those. Yeah, easily we could build that." And so we built one. So it was, kind of just I had a need for something, and I went and looked and did not see that need met. So I did it myself. And that's kind of that's the entire process for this whole solo project. The album art, I in a way had to do that myself. I had a need for it. I had resources. I knew people who could help me. And so I made it happen. The whole record, I have music, so I'm going to record it. Like, I don't know. I have the resources. I have people who I can have help me. I'm going to record it. And the guitars too. That's how I started building the guitars. It was, I was gigging, anywhere 1 to 3 nights a week, every week for a couple years straight. in college. We were in a fairly active college band, and I used a couple different guitars throughout that time, and just sort of, there was nothing really that fit exactly what I needed, so I built it. I took an old Squire Strat and just sort of went to town on it, and sort of did the almost, it was like part Eddie Van Halen, like just make it this shreddy, shred stick, and I spray painted it and stuff, and I put a little more care into it than that, but there was a need and I had the resources, and so I built it. And kind of like for this album too, I built a guitar to record this entire album, but the guitar I built for this one was kind of just a straightforward Stratocaster. Because I had built a couple weird guitars, I was like, I really just want to build a Strat, just a straight up, honest to God Stratocaster, and just do the whole record on that guitar and get all these different sounds and all these different textures and things just with that guitar, because I think that would be kind of cool. So I did it.
That's so cool. That's so unique that you have all of these pieces of equipment that were built with your hands, or yours and your friends' hands, and nobody else will have that exact sound on their record. So you get to have a completely different experience. And I love your mindset. I've talked to many artists so far on this podcast, and I think pretty much all of them, one reason I appreciate them is because they have a similar DIY mindset. You just have to do it, because there's a lot of people will get into music or any kind of entertainment and kind of expect there to be an overnight success, or there's just going to be someone there to pick them up and put them where they want to be. But in reality, like, that's 0.001% of the case. Most people have to make things happen for themselves. And I think you took it even to a different level by building your own guitars and your own effects pedals. But that's, I love to see that. I just think that is such an important thing for people listening to really understand, is like, nobody's going to get you there except yourself.
That's absolutely right, and it's to the point where you can't even necessarily go at it like, well, I'm gonna grind through this so that I can be in that 0.001% later. You kind of have to take it as like, no, like this is the success. Like wrenching on my guitar is the reward.
Absolutely.
Like recording my album and releasing it is the reward. Like, would I love to be in that 0.001%? Of course. I think every single person who does this stuff has that little bit of hope in there that like maybe one day they will. Of course. But like, no, the people who make it, they have that determination and that drive, and they look for those opportunities to maybe be in that small percentage. But, at the same time, you have to have that mindset of like, no, this is the place. I'm there. Like, I'm already there. I've already succeeded. Like, being on this podcast, victory, like, that's it, I'm already there. So that's a huge part of it.
Very well said. And I appreciate you saying that about the podcast. I'm excited you got to come on. We got to talk about things. I want to give you the last 5, which is just 5 quick questions, and then I'll send you out of here.
Absolutely.
All right, John. First question, live or in the studio?
Live.
Really?
Yeah.
I would have expected in the studio with how much time you spend there.
That's true. With this project, it's a little bit of out of necessity, but I think bands are, you make or break a band based on the live performance.
Yeah, I could see that, because there's been many bands that I see live and I've never heard any of their music, and they totally made me a fan, and I went back and listened to everything they've done. And then there's been bands where I love their music already, and then I see them live and I almost am disappointed, and listening to their music later is not the same,
Yeah, I think it goes back for me, like, obviously the smart ass answer is both, haha, but like, like for me, when I was real young and was first getting into like music, my favorite band was Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin, and I started listening to their studio albums. And of course, Jimmy Page, his production work and his work in the studio is really incredible. It's stuff I still go back to as a reference today. But he'll have songs where he has half a dozen guitars layered, and there's the John Paul Jones bass line and a synth line, and Robert Plant's vocals are doubled, and this and that. There are a ton of effects and a lot of studio magic on it. And then you go look at The Song Remains the Same live album or How the West Was Won, and you see that song on the track listing, and you're like, how the hell are they going to do this? There's only 3 instruments on stage and Robert Plant. It's like, what, how the hell are they going to, but then they do it. Mm-hmm. And they completely rearrange the song, but it totally works. And that to me is like the key kind of piece of like, can you take this crazy shit you did in the studio and pull it off live? Like that to me is like the crucible,
Well, you definitely got your work cut out for you with Brauheist 2006, man. I don't know how you're going to play that live, but I can't wait to hear it.
Definitely. Hopefully one day.
One day. All right, question number 2. What's on your musical rotation right now?
Musical rotation right now. I actually I just got through marathoning Lonesome Crowded West by Modest Mouse.
Okay.
Which is kind of a departure for me. I recently started doing a podcast of my own. I got like roped into it, sort of. It's a funny story, but
give us the plug.
So it's called what's it called? Bands, Beers, and Buzzwords. I've recorded 2. Bands, Beers, and Buzzwords. Dude, absolutely. It's basically what it is it's drunk history, but you talk about your favorite album. And that's it.
That sounds incredible.
We play a drinking game, and the last album that my guest chose was Lonesome Crowded West, which I'd never listened to. And so I sat down and marathoned it a couple times through, and I was blown away. Because Modest Mouse, I knew of, Float On and whatever, right. Just kind of their big hits, which, it's a cool song, whatever. Dashboard, cool guitar riff, okay. Respect to Johnny Marr, cool. But then I sat down and listened to this, and I was like, whoa. Like Isaac Brock's just kind of raw emotion on that record and stuff. I was really impressed by it. I thought that was a cool record. But other than that, what am I listening to right now? I've been revisiting some classic Mac DeMarco stuff, just easy listening, fun, just throw it on in the car or whatever. Another one too is the Cleaners from Venus. Do you know them?
I don't. That's a cool name though.
They're super cool. It's basically this dude, this English guy, Martin Newell, and he was recording. If you go on Spotify and look him up, they have like 30 records starting in I think like 1978, and the latest one is in 2020. And he basically
Wild.
He's the DIYer's dream. He set up in his little apartment in England and recorded stuff on tape and overdubbed it, and it kind of sounds like crap, but it's like super endearing and like very well put together. He's a very good lyricist. It's like the Beatles meets the Clash with kind of a new wavy vibe. It's very cool stuff.
What's it called? The Cleaners on Venus?
The Cleaners from Venus.
From Venus. That's
yeah.
Such a dope name.
Yeah.
Well, I'll definitely have to check them out. Question number 3. What's your next piece of equipment on your wish list?
On my wish list. Well, I just got done building a telly.
Wow.
Which was probably the most like standard non-weird guitar I've built yet. So I've decided the next build is going to be a really weird guitar. So I've been looking at old kind of Japanese Taisco and like like Sears guitar stuff. So I've been looking at weird stuff. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do yet, but it's going to be quote unquote weird. And it's going to have, I want to do some onboard effects on it.
Nice. That would be really cool. That'd be kind of hard, I think, to, engineer that.
Yeah, it's there. I mean, there's always kind of a like the right way and the easy way to do it. And with a weird guitar, sometimes the easy way is actually preferable.
Right.
So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. It is one of those projects though where you like start out like, oh, it's gonna be this, this, and this, and then you get halfway in and you're like, okay, I'm gonna cut like half these features, you know. So we'll see. But weird guitar is next.
I was about to say, you're probably the only person I've asked that question, and the response was something that they were gonna build, not what they were gonna buy.
I don't buy a whole lot anymore. I if I do, it's something used that maybe I'm gonna fix up or modify somehow.
Okay, question number 4. Who's your dream producer or artist to work with?
Oh boy. I would love to take my stuff to George Martin.
The king, man.
Yeah, I mean that's such like a basic answer, but he's probably the only producer that I have like sort of followed in a way. Like, you know, you listen to a band and then you see one of the guys has a solo project, so you kind of start following that artist through his various projects. George Martin's probably the only producer where I've like sort of followed him and been like, what did he work on? I want to listen to that.
Other than the Beatles, I don't know really many other projects he's done. What are some of his best ones to you?
So he did Blow by Blow, Jeff Beck.
Oh, okay.
Which, if you listen to the final track on that record, what is it called? Diamond Dust, you'll immediately be, yeah, this is George Martin. You'll hear the strings on it and be like, this is George Martin. He did some of Wings' stuff. Like, I believe he did Band on the Run, which is, oh my God, what a great record. Unbelievable. He did he do, I might be totally wrong about this, but he may have done Thriller. Did he? I don't know.
No, I think that's Quincy Jones.
Quincy Jones. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely
but also
right. Yeah,
an incredible
never mind.
Producer.
Another
like, at that level for sure.
Yeah. Okay, you're right. There's like another one that I'm forgetting that is like really big. He may have done did he do like Silk Degrees or I forget. He pops up like from time to time. He pops up and you're like, whoa, he did this record. Like he has some big ones to his name, so he's probably my number one.
I'm gonna have to go listen to that Blow by Blow album because I don't know much by that George Martin's done other than the Beatles.
Yeah, I would check it out because obviously the Wings stuff is, you know, quite Beatles-esque,
right?
Which is why I love it. But you know, yeah, Blow by Blow, Jeff Beck is a quintessential like guitar album. It's a jazz fusion, kind of funk jazz fusion, all instrumental, but very cool record. Yeah.
Nice. All right, final question here: who to you is the most underrated artist right now?
Ooh. Most underrated artist right now. I'd want to give another shout out to my boy Martin Newell of Cleaners from Venus, just because he's been putting in work for decades.
Yeah, that's pretty intense.
Putting in work for decades. So probably him. Plus, when you listen to his lyrics and stuff, I think they're on par with some of the Beatles stuff, you know, like in terms of like Brit pop, like he's up there, I would say. Who else? I feel like there's another one I was kind of just thinking about who's very underrated. I don't know. I forget. We'll leave it at that, I think.
Cleaners from Venus.
Cleaners from Venus.
Shout out.
Martin Newell, absolutely. Been putting in work for decades, so.
Awesome. Well, John from Delta Dagger, dude, thank you so much for coming on. That's going to end our session here on that note. And I appreciate you talking about your process, how you build guitars and effects. I was really curious to learn about that when I saw that you did that. So thank you again for coming on, man.
Totally. Thank you, Parker. Thank you for having me.
Of course, yeah. I'll talk to you later.
See you, man.
I'm so in love. I'm so in love. I'm so in love, but I'm still feeling blue. I've had enough. Now times are tough. I'm so in love, but she broke my